Hey, everybody, welcome again to Blind Buys with Jeremy and Andrew. We are once again here to discuss some recent blind buy purchases and also some classics that we have seen multiple times, but finally had the ability to pick up a boutique release of it. Starting with 1972's Pink Flamingos, John Waters' classic cult film, and 1973's thriller A Cruel Picture. And that's the one that we're going to talk about first. No real reason. You can get the really cool boutique release from Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah, this
And
was a big deal. It's
it
sold
was
out.
it was
This box set here.
heavily scalped. But yeah, as you can see, we have the multiple
Yeah,
disc set there.
there's the back. Let me
Yeah, this
find the fucking camera because I'm a
comes with
fucking amateur.
a, pretty
It's
much
clown show
every
here.
and a clown show is the perfect show for the films that we're going to talk about tonight.
All right,
And
so
I don't.
um I want to first talk about this packaging, okay? This is a cool box set, but I don't feel like you need this. They call her One Eye. This cut, it's a separate thing. Like, I know the big deal was like it's limited and it's going fast. But really, this cut is the only one you need because it's uncensored and it's the way the movie's intended to be watched. This is more
Yeah,
of a curiosity, right? Would you
yeah,
agree?
I agree with that. I was actually going to make that point. I don't know if that's the wrong one. I don't know if it will ever be taken out of the seal. I don't. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch it like this.
Oh, you didn't break the seal.
And I did not
Break
break the
the
seal
seal.
on They Call Her One Eye. Um, I'm not quite sure if I will ever watch that. And you and I both kind of technically watched different versions of this movie. Uh,
Yeah, because I watched the dub and you watched the original subs.
and that was not even by choice, which I do try to watch the original sub if possible. Um, but I didn't even think to look for the dub version. Once you told me that's what you were watching, I popped it on for a little bit, and I was watching through it. And one thing that I wanted to talk about was how impressive it was with the dubs and like several characters in this movie actually almost it sounded like the same voice, the same person talking, which I guess in Sweden they also speak English as one of their
Yeah.
languages. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. But some of
Um.
the dub was like spot on good, like real good.
Yeah, I didn't even notice there it was a dub after a while. Maybe I just got sucked into the movie so much, but it seemed the voices for me matched like perfectly too, for some reason. And then again, I've watched, some real like zombie Holocaust or something where it's just like completely fucked up.
Some of the
So
worst dubs are always the most entertaining to watch.
yeah, this
Like,
this was pretty for me. It was flawless in that way. I didn't have an issue.
so you just used the word flawless, and that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention immediately because I feel that this
Really?
movie, beginning to end, was a flawless movie. I couldn't wait to talk to you about this movie because literally from beginning to end, I just could not believe what I was watching. Now, this was a blind buy for me. Sometimes in blind buys, we're not going
Yeah.
to actually go in blind on certain movies. Sometimes that's just a term for this podcast. This was a first viewing experience for me. Getting to see it the way that it was originally intended is a big deal. I remember I was discussing this movie with somebody else, and they were like shocked I'd never seen it, and they had the old DVD. But beginning to end, I felt like this movie was incredible with some silliness, but that comes with the territory. Um,
Okay. So I expected some kind of mix of I Spit on Your Grave and Death Wish, and it's not that. It's not like that
right.
fun, pulpy, like, you know, action movie-ish thing. It's an art film. This is an art house movie, and the exploitation elements are it's like a part of the statement the movie's making rather than just like for funsies. So I thought
Yeah,
that was a total shock coming into
yeah.
this movie.
You mentioned I Spit on Your Grave, and that's what I was expecting when I came into this movie. I was like, okay, so this is a rape revenge movie, and it's going to be graphic, and it's going to be violent, and everybody puts this over, and she's walking around with an eye patch killing people. But you take those exploitive elements out of this movie, and you still have like a really gripping drama about a person overcoming a terrible situation of having been kidnapped.
It's a
For
very
those
yeah.
for those who aren't familiar with this movie, a it starts out with a child molestation, and a girl is molested, and she's like whisked away, and even that part is like super artsy and like
That's that is where I was like, "Okay, this isn't the movie I thought." Because he picks her up and he's, like, twirling her around and blood starts coming out of his mouth for what reason I wasn't able to figure out at first. And then they cut to, her clothes on the ground while she's, like, still wearing them. It was very like, there's a lot of symbolism going on, like, it wasn't you watch a lot of movies nowadays, and everything is explained to you beat by beat. Like,
you
you
see
have
a
every
trailer and
scene.
everything is
Yeah.
explained before you even see the movie.
You have everything you need in the movie without you having to think about anything, whereas this, there's stuff like that where you have to infer what happened. You don't just get it spoon-fed to you, which I thought
Yeah,
was, like, the kidnapping later on too, or, like, when she escapes to go learn how to fight and shoot and all that stuff. They don't show her, like, escaping. You know that the girl told her how to escape earlier, and you just infer that that's when she got out during, like, her free day or something. You have to kind of put that together, and I
yeah.
love that. I did not expect that from this movie.
No, not you get nothing of what we expected. So from right from the get go, there's this child molestation, but it's not graphic. It's artsy and shot well, and you have to think. And immediately there's a little bit of a time jump after that, and you learn like she's a mute, she's traumatized, she'll never speak again, basically. And then there she is just casually walking on the road, and then suddenly is the prey to a predator once again, but kind of unwitting. And at that point, I don't know if that's just like a foreign 70s thing, but that's if you're gonna draw some type of conclusion about uh, realism or writing, that I think that's where you do it. This girl was molested by somebody she trusted, and she's awfully trustworthy of this fellow as he's driving by. And I know it was the 70s and people just met and
Yeah.
banged and all that other stuff, but like that's the only point, and you got to get to a kidnapping somehow. So she's walking along the side of the road and goes with this guy, and it's a kidnapping. He takes her and uh, starts to shoot her up with heroin so that she becomes addicted and needs him, and he basically puts her into the sex trade, which is a hot topic in America today. Is this fabled sex
Yeah.
trade that exists that
Hasn't
isn't
really
real at
gone
all,
away. Yeah.
but everybody talks
Buying
about
cabinets on Wish and stuff that supposedly were people in there, and,
yeah.
like, they weren't real cabinets, you're buying little girls on Wish. Like, "Alright, okay."
But so that's kind of the general introduction to this movie. Um, so the depiction of heroin, I guess, from a 1970s standpoint, is uh, kind of dramatic. Like they kind of use that as a way, like, or you're gonna die because you're addicted to heroin now, so you can't run
Yeah.
away, or you're gonna die in 2 days. Which, again, for its time, it was plot necessary, despite the fact it was silly. But I was looking it up, and in the scenes when they're injecting the heroin, I thought it looked like super real. So like
Was it?
by today's standards, well, I mean it wasn't heroin, but they were really putting a needle in her and injecting water that was mixed with it said salt.
I don't think I would
So
do that.
yeah,
Speaking of that, though, why she had to mix it up herself? I thought that was kinda rude. of the guy. At least he could do is give it to her already done up, with a little water cup.
Well,
I
that's
didn't know that that's how you mixed up heroin. I thought that was
one,
news to me.
one thing that is actually accurate about that. Um, but but yeah, so she's actually like in this movie. You're actually like seeing somebody, and that's like low budget exploitation film 101, I guess, is doing what you need to do with what you have. This was shot with like basically no budget because the director, whose name I can't pronounce, this was his comeback film actually. The movie that he made
What
right before the movie that he made right before this was a total bomb. And it says
was like, come back in what way? Like, what was he banned before? What did he do?
Bo Arn Vibenis, or however you say that weird Swedish name. Bo
I'm
Arn
sure that's it.
Vibenis made this film to cover up the financial failure of his first film. His intention was to create a commercial as hell crap film, and that's in quotation marks. The actors had a clause in their contracts to ensure that they would not reveal who the director of the film was.
So
So
he tried to make this a mainstream commercial movie, and he just accidentally made an art film. How does that
basic,
happen?
basically, he
The fuck?
legitimately was trying to make a commercial as hell crap film. Those are his words. And he accidentally stumbled into making what a lot of people call the first exploitation movie ever made. That's a debatable thing, but that's definitely
Yeah,
a that's a tagline that people have attributed to
that's
this
silly.
movie.
I mean, we're gonna review another movie here that came out a year before that it was an exploitation film. So I don't know.
Yeah,
That's silly, but
but you get you had mentioned that she sneaks out and she learns like she's basically prostituted and she has to deal with that. And obviously, there's lots of scenes where she's trying to escape. It does a really good job of beating this character down into submission. It's not a just kind of going by the beat kind of film.
you know
You
that the eyeball was real.
yeah, that was one of the things I was going to bring up.
That
So
was fucked up. Right?
as this character is fighting, the way that they finally kind of get her into submission is they cut her eye out and blind her in the one eye, and
I was like, oh man,
that's a real eye.
oh,
They
fuck.
There was a person who had died and they shot that in the hospital. That's a real cadaver.
There's
So
gonna
you
be
see,
two scenes this week from these movies we're reviewing where I was like, oh, I was fucking disgusted. You know what the other one is, I imagine, but we'll get there later. But yeah,
the scalpel to the eye was really good, like, and that's why it's a real scalpel to the eye. That's not effects.
it
All
was
they did
fucking
was put a
nasty.
little,
But
yeah.
how did they? So I know they had a real eye, but I didn't look up. How did they have a face that looked like it was like her face with the eye? It was like a seamless cut. Like you couldn't have told me that wasn't just her eye getting fucking stabbed. That was incredibly well done. Like
Yeah.
most of the effects in this movie, I thought were well done and shit.
So yeah, it just said in the thing that I read that it was the body of a young girl who committed suicide, and then the makeup was added to the eye, and the shot was filmed in the
Oh,
hospital that they
oh, they had a
received the
whole
body
fucking
in.
body.
Yeah,
What the
so
fuck?
it was a girl who committed suicide, and they did some makeup on the face, and
Yeah.
that's that's where you that's where you get that scene. And
They were
so
not. Jesus Christ. Yeah, they weren't afraid to go all the way with this one.
from that point on, she's like submissive. She takes the heroin. She's banging the clients. She's not scratching their faces or attacking anybody. She's been submitted. She's part of the thing. And at that point, she meets somebody else who kind of guides her a little bit, like a friend from down the hall, basically, who's like, just do what you got to do. They pay you, kind of. And she starts taking money
What?
on the side and saving it up, and like there's like this whole goal that's instilled
Yeah.
into her from her friend down the hall about like just give in, do more than what's expected, save money up, and then get out and sneak out, and there's treatments that you could get. And so that character basically is then brutally murdered. And so then she's on this plot now in her head to, she's gonna get out, she's gonna get revenge. When they
What did you
kidnap
think
her,
all that blood? That was ridiculous, right? How much blood
yeah,
was running from that fucking blanket? Looked
yeah,
like they just dumped a fucking bucket of red shit everywhere. Like, it was an insane amount of ridiculous blood, but I think it got the point across effectively. It's
yeah,
just
for
licking it or
sure.
something.
And so she's like, from that point, she has an off day. Like they are submitted so well that they are given a day off where they can go just fuck off and do whatever, and they're gonna come right back because there's that much like control over them at that point. And she starts like going and taking hand-to-hand combat classes, and she's taking classes for firearms, and all of these things that if this movie like came out today, there'd be like one scene of it and that's it. But like
They would
this,
play, Pat Benatar's "Hit Me With Your Best Shot" over it.
yeah.
And
Well,
she was
and
like,
I
doing
actually
the
thought
karate.
about that when I was watching that. Like I had wanted to see if anybody had taken those and turned it into a montage, because it's not really a montage. Like it comes back to it. It's part of the film. It's part of the development. It's not just like oh, so she's gonna know how to use a gun later, so we need to explain that real quick. Like you see her constantly like going and learning and getting better, and then getting thrown out because they realize she's a junkie and like on heroin when she's there too. Even so, like it kind of gives her that like that sense of hope and purpose and the ability to fight back, but then that's also taken from her due to the fact that these people have like created an addiction to this drug, and that like that served its purpose, and you actually see that in action. Like it's not just like the plot device of okay, well, how are we going to keep these girls here and how are we going to keep them subservient to this guy. Like you actually like okay, she's out and about, and then her life is like drawn down because people see the heroin.
Like, when she first went back to see her parents, I was like, "Alright, what did we time jump? How did she get out of here?" And it was like, that's what I was talking about earlier, where it was inferred that on her off day, she was escaping and going out and, doing all this different stuff, which I thought was pretty neat that they showed that she was, like, very calculating in everything that she was doing. So I would've never thought about learning how to fight or shoot a gun or something. I would've been
Yeah,
like that other chick, just losing my fucking mind after, like, escaping. So this chick was way more capable than me.
yeah. And then so like at that point, eventually we know that she's done these things and is prepared for it. And so when the time comes and it becomes that revenge part of the film, and she's like fucking kind of badass and going around with this double barrel shotgun and a trench coat and with the eye patch, just blowing these dudes away with it, like going to their houses, killing them and killing the clients in front of their wives and shit. Like,
So I like the choice of showing a couple of clients so that when she eventually kills them, it's very contained of the people she kills. And I thought it was cool to have a woman client too. Like, she's just getting on top of her, slapping the shit out of her and shit. I was like,
yeah,
what the fuck's going on here?
it kind of caught me off guard too. It came out of nowhere, but like even that actress was like really good at like needing to be like a a like a, a dom like and like
Nothing about it was sexy at all. None of those sex scenes at all. Like, with the how sad the movie is, you're not watching it like, oh yeah, we're seeing some fucking hardcore shit going on here. You're like, oh, this girl's
and
just getting fucked
and this
against
movie
her
came
will.
this
This kind
movie
of sucks.
yeah was released. So the version that we have was released by Vinegar Syndrome, and there was controversy around it because Synapse had put one out too, like right before that, and it was like a big deal. And then it kind of became like a clash of like one of these like one of these labels is doing wrong, and then it was kind of revealed that Vinegar Syndrome not only had like the rights, but due to their ability to release with all of the rights that they went back and put in like all of the sex scenes, and Like there's like a big deal about they're gonna like there was the 4K butthole and
Yeah, yeah, that's a good time. I like the
and
part where she's riding him and he puts his finger in her ass. That was nice to
yeah,
see in 4K.
exactly.
Or when
But
he like, when he comes on her asshole after, that was a nice touch for a
I
rape revenge
actually
movie.
wasn't even expecting that. Like once the asshole was there, I was like, oh okay, okay, so full anal penetration,
I
and
like the
then
music that they had during those rape scenes, because it was also, like, the same music cues when she was loading the guns and shit. So
yeah,
I thought that was really artistic. Very well done.
and not once was it like I don't want to say a, like attractive or felt like a like it's this is now like pornographic or anything like that. This
Nah.
put you right there in that situation, and that's why like I felt like this movie like I went into this movie expecting one thing, and I was given like a really deep character driven drama that also happened to have these elements into it, and yeah. And so then she's just at the end, she's like all badass, and you get your action and your revenge, and it doesn't happen right away. And you so like the whole like last part of like the third act is just all like revenge shit. She's running around
I
in a
do
stolen police car.
So that's where I don't think this movie's flawless, and it's in the shooting scenes with the slow motion were fine. Well, I think they coulda trimmed that a little bit there,
That's
but
true. Every one of them were slow mo. That is true.
the part that was egregious, though, was when she kicks the shit out of the cops with her karate, and it's like the fucking movie Sledgehammer when they're near that van just walking, and it's like, "Why is this in slow motion and taking, like, 3 years?" Like, I
That's
dozed off for a second during that scene, and then I was like, "This is still going?" It's like, "What the fuck is happening?" Why like, the cop's just laying back like this, blood is slowly pooling, and she's like,
yeah, that's
it just
true.
fucking goes on. It's like, alright, this is definitely artistic. It's definitely a different interpretation of this kinda scene than what you'd
That
normally see.
I don't know what the name of the sound effect is, but it's a sound effect that has existed since the 70s. And it was like in the Million Dollar Man and like all of those old kung fu movies and stuff where like something's happening and it's like chick 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 chick. Like they jump and it's
That
like tick
fucking
tick tick
thing.
tick 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 tick. That that sound effect is in this movie, and I was like surprised as hell by it. I would love to know what that is called because I would use it in everything that I've ever done. It would be my ringtone, just because I get a kick out of every time I hear it, like those old like 70s movies. Uh, so
It looks
yeah,
like for the next show, we're gonna have to do some, looking that up, some Googling.
so yeah, it was not the movie that we thought it was going to be, and that was even like the hardcore director's cut version. I am almost intrigued to see it without that extra stuff because I like the drama so much. But
Yeah, we
uh,
started talking shit about, like, "Why do you need this cut?" But now the more we're talking about it, if they do cut out the hardcore stuff and I don't know, maybe they tone down the, slow motion or something. Because how much this cut is how much fucking longer? This is 108 minutes, and the other cut is 90 minutes, so that's not insignificant amount of stuff that's, changed in those cuts.
yeah, so
We
overall, I really liked it. It's definitely something to keep on the shelf forever. I'm gonna watch it definitely many times, I think. And you can kind of see those influences from Quentin Tarantino for the Kill Bills too.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. The scene where she comes out of the shed with the gun and the camera, it's like a real low shot of her walking, and it's almost like, okay, now shit has turned. Now she's a fucking badass. She gets in the car, tapes the gun to her fucking neck. You're like, all right, but it's that shot right there that just is the separation now. Like now she's fucking vengeance. I love that shit. So fucking good. Also the fall leaves and the trees, it had a real melancholy fall vibe to it that I didn't expect to have. This is almost like a I'm not gonna say it's a Halloween, type of watch, but it's definitely like it's like with Rad. Thriller and Rad are like your late September pre-Halloween, uh, pre-gamers for me. Just the
yeah,
vibe I got from that.
Yeah,
Didn't
I
expect
might
that.
slip it into that October viewing, maybe even a September viewing. Slip it into like the like Thanksgiving kind of in between
Oh, yeah, that day
holidays.
after Thanksgiving, like the Black Friday, I'm kinda fucking bored, I went shopping, what am I gonna do? Oh, let's just chill with this movie. Although,
Yeah,
not a chill movie, I don't not for but I
it's
think it is in a way.
not. I was reading in a forum where somebody had talked about now they had pirated this movie and they were getting flack for that, but what they said was they had this projector and they watched movies outside and on like on the side of their house, and they played this on the side of their house, and they were just like spending the night watching this on the side of their house. That I thought
Yeah.
was like really extreme.
I don't know,
But
I'm not that classless, I think, to have that. Maybe I would play the other cut. I don't know.
but
Here's a big asshole out here on the side of my house.
something else that I thought was interesting that I learned in preparation for this episode was that, like, like I had said earlier, the director had that clause where people weren't even allowed to disclose who the director was, but he's actually in the movie. If you can remember the hot dog vendor who
Really?
shows her the
That's
way
him?
to the dock, yeah, that's him. Like, he's actually even in the movie,
I
and
must cameo in this pictures.
they talk about how it was like the first movie ever banned in Sweden, but that's actually not even true too. So I guess like that was a big part of like early advertising that Vinegar Syndrome. All they put was banned by Swedish censorship. They didn't actually claim it to be the first like people used to do.
They
But
certainly don't wanna be inaccurate, you know?
um, yeah, overall, just like the transfer, if you get the 4K, was amazing. I can't say anything about the Blu-ray or the Synapse. I like this movie so much. Like I have been considering getting all forms of it. Like I thought about grabbing the DVD and the Synapse Blu-ray, but then well, there's no point in doing that because I already have the most elite version. Like I had to talk myself out of collecting all
Gonna
of
make
it
a
because
shrine out of this movie? I don't know. That would be questionable, I think.
yeah, well, I mean we are questionable people, but yeah, I mean this is. I mean, we're 2 episodes into this, but as close as you can get to a 10 out of 10 for me is, I mean, it is. And the next movie that we're going to talk about really isn't that different for me either. If our and unless you have more to talk about with Thriller.
No, let's roll. Let's roll on the next one here because I also think this is a 10 out of 10.
uh,
And it surprised me that it was a 10 out of 10 this time, because I hadn't seen this movie, Pink Flamingos, since I was in high school. And obviously, I was, in high school, we were going through that. Let's watch every shocking movie that ever existed fucking kick. So, watched this for the shocking parts, but didn't really think about it. And watching it now, man, did you, what did you think? Okay, about the story, the characters, the
I don't
comedy.
know. You can't tell in my lighting, but I got goosebumps. I have goosebumps getting ready to talk about this movie because the same situation. Like so people who don't know us personally like wouldn't know that we spent our adolescence at the video store watching movies that we shouldn't have been watching, as young kids starting with the horror genre and just kind of working our way through. I honestly like I have you to thank for kind of pushing me into more of like artistic low budget independent films. I would have found them eventually, I think, but like getting into them when I did was definitely because of you. And a part of
Yeah, that
that
was a weird
also
phase.
is like I remember renting Hard Candy with you and being like, this movie like was way better than I expected it to be. And just kind of in that era, like from high school to like like into those into like those years, like that's when I was kind of discovering this stuff, and it was basically because I was renting movies with you. And so
That's when we
yeah,
started getting into trauma hardcore. So that trauma was the gateway drug to a lot of things
yeah,
for me.
I was cool with just letting it be trauma though, and then going back to my comfort zone of watching like just whatever horror movies I was into. But like you definitely kind of helped me along in this. So yeah, however long it had been, 15, 16, however many years since I watched this movie, it was basically a blind rewatch, and I couldn't look away from it. From
Right?
the first thing that I texted you when I was watching this, because you'd grabbed it before me, and I got it on like the last day of the sale that Criterion was having in July. And I got home and I popped that in, and I'm watching it, and we both have the panty, and I got the OLED behind me, and I couldn't believe how good it looked at first. Like the transfer on this Criterion Blu-ray is better than some 4Ks that I have on my shelf. I'm looking at you, Escape from LA. Like I first so immediately jumped out. It was beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful to see. Colors are popping in ways that I would never expected a movie this dirty and grungy from 1972 to pop. There are sequins and dresses and things that the way at least my TV was set up hurt my eyes. So from like the PQ standpoint and like just general like film quality like what of what you're seeing visually, it was stunning. So right from the beginning, it's even advertised as in color, you know what I mean? Like part of like the fun advertising in the movie is pink flamingos in color. So like when you kind of
That's
like
that warms my heart when you told me that, and then I watched it because that's what Criterion used to be known for, man. That was the first boutique I ever got into back in, like, high school. I think
and the
what was the
and
first one I ever bought? I can't even think. Probably was it Videodrome? Whenever they put that out, I immediately bought that DVD,
see
and I was like, "Man."
I do remember having Criterion DVDs, but I don't remember really until I got back into collecting since the pandemic. Like I don't remember ever like having like the Criterion Blues. So like there's that whole era of Criterion that I wasn't there for. But when I came back, they lost me. Like I kind of thought like they had like really dipped in quality, especially with what they were putting out. And so I didn't even like buy anything. But
Yeah.
when you talk about kind of like those old classic Criterion releases, you have Brazil, which was a good one. Um, and Dazed and Confused was a pretty good DVD transfer, but I would be here all night trying to remember all of those like old Criterions that I used to have. But um, if this is what they're going to be doing moving forward as far as like quality goes, then they won me back. I got to the point where I didn't even have a single Criterion left on my shelf. Not even Night of the Living Dead, because I just knew in my heart that was a 4K waiting to happen. Um,
Yeah,
but
from the picture quality too, let's also talk about the slip. It looks like a paper bag, and it feels like it has a feel of, like, paper baggish to it, to
yeah,
me.
it
And I
doesn't
was
feel
sh
just like usual cardboard. Like
I was like, "This is weird."
they put a lot
Did
of work into this release. I mean,
when
down
you
to
get
like
into it, yeah,
you got like
so
the divine painting that they have, and I don't remember if yeah there isn't anything like
of
on the
course.
reverse, but you
It's a
as you
fucking
could
barf
show
bag.
that it comes with the barf bag and like the cool newspaper thing. I was just looking at that like before we started. I didn't get a
Yeah, and then
chance to really dig into
so
that.
after watching the movie again, this was one of the press, people that were at the end of the
Yeah,
movie. So I thought that was fucking sick when I opened this back up, and I'm like, "Oh, that's fucking cool. That's really good detail."
yeah.
And there's a lot of good information in here too.
It's kind of like
So,
the same thing as uh the same. I just got a weird text message. The same thing that uh, my wife is at a bar right now, and she just texted me that Kevin Hart is there. So that threw me
the
off. Um,
huh? Or
apparently, in Pittsburgh, there's a Kevin Hart's at a bar that my wife is at.
which
So
which bar is she at?
it's called the Long
Is
Treasure
this
Island.
doxing?
So I might
Should I leave right now and go?
You're not far. I might be a rich man tomorrow, but I digress. Um, so the Pink Flamingos, like the plot itself, I don't want to just assume people have watched it just like the like Thriller. I'll go through it a little bit with like so bare minimum. Basically, you're seeing people who are legitimately feuding, like the Hatfields and McCoys, over who is the filthier person, like who is a dirtier, more vicious scumbag of a trash human being, and that is by far the best take of the Hatfields and McCoys that ever existed. It is certainly the most creative stab at it. And then you bring in you go, I guess, I don't know, New York art scene drag queens and stuff, which you know John Waters was a part of. This isn't the first movie even made with Divine, but you have Divine in there and just this family of scumbags who are feuding with another family of scumbags, and the movie just kind of evolves from that. And each
Man, but
kind
like
of
the layers of the different ways that they're scumbags and the weird shit that the marble guy's doing with the with meat tied to his cock and scaring women to steal their purses and just
yeah,
like all these different stuff. The story's actually really good, and I think the characters are really good, and the acting is actually to
really
me
good.
like yeah, for what they're going for, because everybody kinda knows it's a joke, but it gets dark at near the end, and you kinda start feeling the gravity of, like, "Wait a minute. This is
Dude,
these people are actually gonna die, and I don't know about this."
at no point do any of the actors stumble on lines. And this is not like a movie that had a million uh, takes at it to get a shot. You know, like some of the dialogue was very much monologue. Like if you could just almost you could feel like there was like a New York almost Broadway vibe to how they were acting, but it didn't look like that, which is something like I've always argued with people. I have family who are like very deep into theater, and I've always argued like it's two different mediums. Like you could be an amazing theater actor and just dog shit on film. The two are not the same. But
Yeah,
this
that's
one
true.
like almost was that antithesis to that. Like it felt very much like you were watching a stage play, but with exterior shots and like cameras and things like that. The way that they acted and spoke, but like
The
they never,
narrator too. Yeah,
yeah, they
like,
never,
everything about that.
they don't stumble. And each transition to the next scene is almost like a scene in and of itself, almost segment like, but still holds plot and continues narrative. And you get everything that you want and then more. Like I didn't remember at all that they were using a live chicken during a violent sex scene where a woman gets her
Yeah,
stomach cut open by the bird, because it's like, what the fuck is going on? Why? Um, so there's all of this like really uh, artistic, I don't know, effort. You know, like to watch this now, it's
yeah, like
almost like you could do this. But when you look at it through the lens of this was 72, like everything about this movie is really impressive.
the way the chick, like the kidnapped girls in the basement when she starts like swearing and stuff, you don't hear a lot of like the way that dialogue was presented from around that time. Early 70s is when like that's like really started. To me, that's just it didn't feel it felt like it wasn't just doing jock stuff. There was like actually artistic merit to it. And I didn't remember that from watching it in high school. I just remember the eating the dog shit part. The chicken thing and the fucking Divine sucking her son's cock. That's about what I remembered of it. And watching it again, I was like, I was just totally thinking of this as just a trash movie and not like an actual funny fucking comedy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like that's what you remember, and then there's even the trash you forget. Like the fact that they basically like took a dude who was probably did this and bathhouses for fun who just gaped.
Who's that?
Just, how do you? And I don't know how somebody gets good at that, but why not put that on film? Why not? Why not give that guy, that street gaper, the
Jim Carrey made a career out of it later on. So
okay, that's true. Um, but I can't like or the extremely passable for 1972 trans chick
that surprised me
caught
whenever
me off
she got out of
guard.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, like and then also to have this vagrant, this disgusting person who is streaking and whipping his dick out to like fuck with somebody, to then be immediately fucked with and revolted by what he saw, that he just picked the wrong person to whip his dick out to. And then suddenly this girl also whips out a dick, and then he takes off like almost about to throw up. Like it's
That's how you know
there's
they were posers
it's very
throughout that
layered.
movie.
It's very layered
Yeah.
and just like an interesting thing. Um yeah,
I like
Divine.
Divine in their bedroom when she's talking about, the disgusting sex acts they do, and they're just, like, sucking each other's toes. Like, they're so fucking vanilla and not the people they think they are. Other than the, like, weird shit they got going on in the basement. They were not the filthiest people.
No, but like
They did
dude, the concept of like we're gonna like kidnap these women, we're gonna put them in the basement, and okay, well, there's a theme here to this week. Now that I'm realizing I didn't even do it
yeah, I
on
didn't think
purpose,
about that.
we're gonna kidnap these women, and we're gonna keep them and force them to be raped so that they could have children and then sell the babies. Like even that's a movie in itself. That's a brilliant idea, and
The jerking off in his hand and with the turkey baster, and then that was pretty graphic,
it
more than I
was
was expecting in that scene.
like a full
It's
on
like, "Ah, cool.
actual baster up at the vagina too. Yeah, it doesn't.
Alright, have
Okay.
fun with that."
So, yeah, and then like they when they burn the trailer down, um, it, I always harp on like things looking good, but like that scene in particular with the fire and stuff. Well, like back to the transfer. Now that I'm thinking about it, like looked so good. Like I'm always blown away by like fire in 4K, and I don't know why. I have like this weird 4K pyromania thing that I like look for when there's flames like on a 4K transfer. And this like looked as good as like 4K flames. I don't know. But
It
uh
was a very well done transfer.
yeah,
Um,
and the milkman or the eggman, not the milkman, the eggman. It was
that was a
like
nice
a
yeah,
character I
funny
had forgot
relationship.
about, and
That was cool.
having to having to move this obese old woman with a like a wheelbarrow, and the fact that like you could see like he has trouble moving her, and like they just couldn't reshoot. Like he had to get it done, and like that was
The only thing the only thing she loved more than him were eggs, so and he was the Eggman, so it was a match made in heaven. There was character development there. From the very first frame, she's screaming about eggs, and then she, talking about the Eggman. I didn't expect that subplot. I forgot about that, like,
yeah.
there's a happy ending for her.
And
She's
she
wheeled
gets
away.
she gets just wheeled away to live with the Eggman, and he marries her, and there you go.
Just,
But
like, weird shit. A lot of weird shit, but it somehow all makes sense in this universe, and none of it feels you ever watch a movie where it's like, "Oh, here's a bunch of weird stuff," and it feels like they're trying too hard. This movie, everything was effortlessly together. Like, there was not one piece of it felt out of place with all the other weird shit in it. But it also didn't
yeah,
feel too steeped out of reality that you were like, "Oh, this is just some wacky bullshit."
the world that was created was just created really well done, and so everything just worked. Everything, top to bottom. This is a 10 out of 10, and especially
Yeah,
like as the feud
sure.
as the feud continues and like gets to the end when Divine's family kind of gets the upper hand finally. Um, like you brought up like the media are there, and there's just like these reporters who are gonna watch this live execution of these people, and that was
Like, oh, is this
convincing.
a statement on sensationalism in media and like exploitation of people, or is it just like, oh, this is weird?
And I
You
couldn't
kind
tell
of
you
that's
which
the
one.
Yeah, that's the best part about it. That's why John Waters is always like art is trash because there's like two levels to this, and it makes you think about stuff like that. So it's just a sensational movie. Like I was
Watch
shocked that I loved it as much as I did this time.
watching this movie kind of made me jealous that that scene doesn't exist for me to exist in. Like that whole like 70 like 60s into the 70s art scene, like the Warhols, and like you got your Divines and your Waters and stuff. Like it would have been something to be part of that. And that was also
And
something that I took away from this movie was like this is a scene that I would have just fucking got a really big kick out of being part of. Like it's a
I would have been in these movies for sure.
exactly. Like, and I guess like we have our own version of that, and we talked about trauma earlier, and trauma still exists and is still doing their thing, but this doesn't exist anymore. Like, nothing exists
Well,
anymore. Like,
I'll tell you something that I found really uh disheartening. Went to Letterboxd to see what people thought of this movie. And one of the most popular reviews is of this guy talking about all of the problematic things in it, like oh, the rape and the way that they talk about
oh,
lesbians
hold on a
and
second, hold
trans
on.
people and stuff.
This guy talked about something being problematic. I bet he had to unpack a couple of things, right? What
Oh,
else are
dude,
we
yeah.
what else are we unpacking right now?
Okay, so the rape stuff, you should never joke about rape. It should never be in a movie like this. It's like, okay, right. Um, the the part where she's where they're asking Divine about how filthy she is, and she says about being a lesbian, I do everything. They're like, oh, that's like shaming lesbian people. And the guy cross dressing when he's pretending to be the redheaded chick, like, oh, they're shaming a kink there. That's they're making it seem like that's a bad thing. And I'm like, these people paved the way for where we are now. Like this was
Yeah,
when it was fun and not like I don't
with
want to
all
get
these
political.
stupid no, but like these stupid rules that everybody follows, and these things that we need to unpack. We really need to unpack. Like I'm tired of people unpacking things. Leave shit packed away. Like like you said, these are the guys and girls that paved the way for what's going on now, and what you're able to do and what you're fighting to have. Like that's stupid. Everything about it. It also makes me think that he just completely misunderstood what he was seeing the whole time. We used to do that other podcast, Zombie Apocalypse, and in Zombie Apocalypse, I would go on and I would read Rotten Tomatoes reviews, and I would attack people that I disagreed with, and I don't think I ever read anything quite as uh, annoying and stupid as what you just read to me right now.
You gotta read it at some point and come back on here and give me your thoughts. But what I found striking was like there are two different scenes here. This is what I always considered like the gay scene, the like this kink scene or whatever the fuck you'd call the John Waters scene, you know? It was like free of like limits, you know? Like everybody was cool with each other and shit, you were allowed to be yourself and be you weren't stepping on eggshells with everything you did. And you know what? I have a good gay friend in uh real life here, and he's like that. So it's like the people who are writing these reviews are just fucking Twitter, Tumblr arenas, keyboard fucking people. They're not, probably don't know any actual gay people. Like
I'm not
period.
in this. I don't know people in any of these current scenes. Um, but it would really make me sad if it wasn't what this is. Like Divine walked so we could run kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, putting this kind of thing out in 1972, Divine, because they don't even reference that Divine is like a cross dresser. It's like she's a woman in this movie, and there's that trans girl that flashes the dude in there, and there's a lot of stuff in here that is pushing fucking boundaries that, could have got put on a fucking stake for that back then.
Yeah.
And
And this is the second movie he did with Divine. They have Lady Trouble too, which is also a Criterion release.
yeah,
Um, I've
should have
never
picked
seen
that
that
up more so.
movie. So, if anything,
Yeah.
rewatching this movie has kind of led me into this where I want to go and I want to watch that movie, and hopefully it's as fun as this one. Just but like seeing Divine and the family and like this like weird outlaw, and they're outlaws in that movie, and that type of behavior is looked down on. You know, even in 2022, that like lifestyle and behavior is looked down on. Not that I'm like glorifying or fucking chickens, but that's only to clarify in case somebody wants to like really try to push what we're saying. Like that they would have been seen as like outlaws to anyone outside of New York at the time. Like, so even as we're talking about it now, the layers are hitting me even more and more. And
Because this went from being taboo and, pushing the boundaries and fucked up to, like, the conservative, you know, mainstream nuclear family crowd, and now the scene that this was, like, a part of now would consider this in bad taste. So it's completely done like a fucking
yeah,
180. It's kinda unreal that this movie's still ahead of its time 50 years later, in my opinion.
yeah, it's nuts. And also, it kind of makes me sad that like this is also like essentially the last good John Waters movie too. I mean,
Really? You think so?
I
What
Baby
about Serial
Boy,
Mom? What about that?
Serial Mom, I guess. Like Baby Boy kind of sucked, and that might just be because it was a musical, and I hate musicals. They had that Dirty Shame movie with Johnny Knoxville that wasn't like superb and or memorable. And it's like I just
I'm
wish,
gonna challenge you on that. We're gonna have to watch some more John Waters
yeah,
movies and report back that
maybe
we
Blind Buys will
might be
do a
wrong.
John Waters episode. I could be wrong. It's been forever since I've seen Serial Mom too. So I like a lot of his movies. I haven't watched like since I was like in my teens. He
Yeah.
hasn't put a lot out, but um, I want
You
everything
know
to
how
be a knockout like this.
yeah, I hope so. Like, I hope we find that you're wrong. 'Cause I discovered John Waters through his stand-up. If you'd call it stand-up, his, like, Henry Rollins spoken word comedy
Yeah.
shows. You ever watch those? He
Um.
did specials for, like,
Yeah.
I don't
Like
think it was HBO maybe or
Showtime or something.
Showtime. They're
Yeah, it was like
fucking
Showtime or
spectacular.
Cinemax or something. And then
Dude,
he would
he's fucking
also
hilarious.
he was like one of the correspondents on the uh what I like to refer to as the glory days of VH1. Like the VH1 of our teens is like the VH1 that I consider to be like top tier entertainment, where it was just like comedians doing comedy. Like he was in like the best week ever and those type of shows. And that was another way that I got not introduced to him, but comfortable with him. Like he was in all of those, every one of them.
He's one of those guys that's like just like a comfort guy, like a George Carlin was, like some guy who I could always look to is like, this guy has never let me down. So
Yeah.
I've always been a big John Waters fan, but I didn't know. I just liked him because of he did fucking trash. And now watching this, I'm like, oh, he was actually really good at like writing a script
And
and making like trash into treasure almost. I
that's
guess
the
you'd say.
difference, I guess, between adolescence and adulthood too, is like those layers were probably just not even something that we could comprehend at 15 years old. But like here living a life now and cracked into the 30s, like it's kind of like insane what I didn't pick up on the first time around. And what have I seen other than this movie that I kind of put in that same kind of category and need to come back and revisit and appreciate in a sense, like I did with this movie. Like this movie was so good that I have been like yearning for discovery, so to speak. Like I want more of this, so I'm now seeking it out basically. And I guess I'll start with Lady Trouble, but like if there are other
Right.
people who could make half as good a movie, then I'd watch those movies too.
Let's go digging and report back to Blind Buys with with our findings.
Yeah, so
So
I
yeah,
think
two basically 10 out of 10 movies on tonight,
yeah, and
which
like
surprised me.
I couldn't I couldn't recommend more either one of these movies. So if anybody has not seen these movies, like please watch them. Like they exist. You can find them. You don't have to find like a super difficult boutique label release to get these things. Like they're not hard to find. They've been around for 50 years. Like just check them out.
Yeah, for sure. Anything anything else that I didn't watch that you wanted to pimp that was really good or briefly or anything?
We I will save my champagne and bullets comments for when
Oh
you
yeah, because I'm gonna
actually
watch that. Yeah.
that's a movie I'm aching to talk about. So probably next episode we'll get to that. Um
I got I do have one thing that I got in this week. The sequel to WNUF Halloween Special. What is this? What's the name of it? It's called Out There Halloween Mega Tape. Okay. Um, all I'll say is you have to watch WNUF first because this, even saying that it subverts expectations is maybe too much of a spoiler I want to give, but I'll just say that. But I'll
all
also
right.
say that the commercials are so fucking 90s. And you know what? I'll give you a taste. There's a Ricky Lake talk show
Oh,
parody that I didn't expect that is so fucking well done. This thing is tremendous. It's also a $30 DVD. So,
so I was kind
I
of
bought it
holding out.
immediately.
I was
They
hoping
didn't
there.
advertise it. Like, it just came out, and I was like, "Alright, fuck it. I'm just gonna get it." Instead of waiting for, like, the boutique Blu-ray, I'm just gonna get this now. I need
Yeah,
to see it, and I was glad I did. Um,
yeah. So I'm kind of
but
hoping
yeah.
there's like a Saturn's core release or something of it.
Yeah, this is bare bones as fuck. I mean, it has, like, a insert thing here with backers on it, but it's just a fucking DVD. So, 30 bucks. It's a little steep. I think it's worth it, but, you're gonna have to draw your own conclusion on that.
Um, I watched Tammy and the T Rex, and it was ridiculously entertaining in like a fun kind of popcorn way. Um, I I don't think it is like worthy of the super cult status it has amassed because of a lenticular slip that was made for it, but it was super entertaining for that one viewing at least. I don't know if I'd ever watch it again, but it's a mechanical dinosaur filled with the brain of Paul Walker. So
Paul
if
Walker?
yeah, Paul Walker is the T Rex in this movie. It was like a
Mm,
super early role of his. Denise Richards is the main character, and there's like this actually you're like really entertaining caricature of what people thought gay people were in the 90s, and um, I guess that's something that someone might want to unpack, but I thought for what they were doing, it was actually pretty amusing. But yeah, you don't have to seek that out very hard either because it's on Showtime constantly. Like it's not one that you need to buy the release from Vinegar Syndrome, but that's my extra movie of the episode.
yeah, you kinda by saying that Paul Walker was in it, you sort of took the wind out of my sails. Hey, this come from a guy who saw Brick Mansions in the movie theater, and
it's
I'm
a
like,
it's a young Paul Walker. I think that's a different Paul Walker than post Fast and the Furious.
I'll have to watch it on Showtime or something.
If it makes you
I'm not
feel
gonna skip
better,
that out.
he's in it for about 10 minutes before it's a mechanical T Rex without a voice.
I'm not
Um,
saying I won't watch a movie with him. It's just that's just very unexciting casting for me to hear that.
I thought
Yeah.
the fact that it was such a young Paul Walker was actually intriguing because it caught me off guard. Like he looks like in middle school. But let's not end this episode talking about uh, Paul
Let's give
Walker.
a taste of what we're gonna watch for next week.
Yeah,
'Cause
we can do that.
Champagne and Bullets is definitely on the docket. That's gonna be reviewed next week. Um, and we need a second one. I know you've been watching a lot of stuff. I've been watching some weird, stupid shit. Uh,
I wouldn't mind talking about Night Train to Terror.
okay.
That is a movie that I watched for the first time, and I will rewatch for an episode of this podcast. It was one that I picked up in the Vinegar Syndrome sale, and it is
So you have
something.
that on Blu-ray.
It is
All right.
something.
I for our audience that I know that's on Tubi, so
Yeah.
everybody can watch it if
Yes.
you don't have
Watch
the
it.
blue.
Watch it, and we'll talk about it. Champagne and Bullets a little harder to find, but Night Train to Terror you could watch it for free at your leisure.
All right, we'll have to discuss which cut of Champagne and Bullets. Or maybe we watch all of them. I don't know. I really have been. That's one reason I haven't watched it yet. Before like we started doing this was I was didn't know which cut to watch and nobody seemed to have a real answer. Like some people were like, "Oh, you should watch Get Even," but like they put it out as Champagne and Bullets, so it seems for me that seems like the definite cut to watch first. So that's
Yeah.
probably what I'll do.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that wraps up another episode of Blind Buys. Thanks for buying blind with us.
All right. And my mouse died. So now I'm gonna have to edit the end of this, which I didn't want to do. Fuck sucker. Fucking piece of shit.